Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Reports of vote buying and other infractions as Caymanians vote for a new government in a historic election. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, May 24th. From the CMC News Centre in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. Polling stations in the Cayman Islands are now closed following a day of voting in a historic election that police and electoral officials say generally ran smoothly. For the first time ever, residents voted under the equitable system of one man, one vote in single-member constituencies. Polls opened in 19 electoral districts at 7 a.m. and there was a heavy stream of voters during the morning period. In fact, Supervisor of Elections Wesley Howell said that by 1 p.m., that's 5 hours before the close of the polls, more than half the 21,000 registered voters had already cast their ballots. He said electoral officials were able to process the voters efficiently and all had gone well as far as that was concerned. But Howell acknowledged there was at least one incident of a photograph of a voter's ballot paper being circulated on social media. And Royal Cayman Islands police spokesperson Jacqueline Carter said, while it was generally a peaceful day with no violence reported by the 150 officers out in the field, lawmen were investigating reports of vote buying and other election day infractions. But she stressed that contrary to reports circulating on social media, no arrests had been made. Well, now that polls have closed, counting will begin at 7 p.m. and results are expected around midnight. The voting was observed by a team from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Head of that mission, Stephen Rodan, said the team will have a preliminary report on their observations by Friday. Threatened industrial action by pilots of regional carrier Liat appears to have been averted for the time being. Pilots had warned they would take action if they were not paid their salaries by midnight on Wednesday, but Liat said in a statement on Wednesday afternoon that flights would operate on Thursday as scheduled. It stated that the planned action by the pilots has been withdrawn following a meeting between management and the pilots' representative, the Leeward Islands Airline Pilots Association, LIALPA. Liat did not give details of the talks, but said the discussions were cordial and management of the pilots union and the pilots have reached a mutually amicable decision on outstanding issues. Earlier, LIALPA President Captain Carl Burke said their protest would have taken the form of sit-ins and a possible picketing at various airports and could have run for at least 4 days. The Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, opened their annual two-day meeting in the Turks and Caicos Islands on Wednesday, and CDB President Dr. Warren Smith told the opening ceremony that an intensified focus on international trade must be at the center of the Caribbean's growth strategy. CMC's Peter Richards is there. He filed this report.
Smith told the CDB Board of Governors that the Caribbean Community CARICOM market is the obvious launching pad for the region's deepened foray into the global marketplace. He said he was convinced that regional integration can be what he called the Caribbean secret weapon for unlocking economic growth and enhancing the prospects of greater prosperity for its people.
The urgency for the adoption of this strategy is occurring at a time when there's clearly emerging a trend towards inward-looking policy platforms and a retreat from globalization in the United States, possibly in the United Kingdom and Europe, traditional trading partners of the Caribbean. The implications of this shift could be manifested in reduced international aid flows. diminished funding for multilateral development banks like the CDB, more difficult access to traditional markets, and the requirement to focus on new export alliances and trading partnerships.
The CDB president said that existing trading arrangements could disappear or markets become more difficult to access, necessitating policy shifts in the Caribbean.
Foremost amongst these shifts would have to be an intensification of the process of making our economies more attractive for productivity-enhancing investments. It would also require a so far elusive resolve amongst our regional leaders to implement in full and without further delay all of the outstanding provisions of the CSM. In short, our region is calling on its leaders to have a laser focus on doing what is right, not what is easy.
Smith said that another corollary is the reopening and conclusion of the stalled talks between Canada and CARICOM. He further said that CARICOM should also continue the outreach to its neighbors in Central and South America for deeper trade and economic cooperation. The call comes on the heels of another challenging year for the region in 2016. However, the CDB is predicting that economic recovery is projected at 1.7% for 2017 based on a return to positive growth in Trinidad and Tobago. From Providenciales, this is Peter Richards for CMC News.
Meantime, the CDB is reporting that 2016 was another challenging year for regional countries. It says economic performance in the larger commodity-producing countries was driven by the slow recovery of international commodity prices from the 2015 lows. The bank said service-based economies fared better, where tourism and construction activities continued to grow. Low oil prices also helped to improve the current accounts of the balance of payments in many of the CDB's borrowing member countries. The bank noted that the loss of correspondent banking relationships in some countries continued to be a challenge last year. This led to an increase in the costs of transactions and also threatened member countries' ability to trade with the outside world. Up next in Caribbean Newsline, advice for developing countries on how to protect themselves against disasters. We'll be right back.
Your heart to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabba Ranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Riot, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Creedence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Teddyson John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
Ready. It's another episode. When we out on the road, this is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink.
King Baba and Nikita. Every fact that I go, you keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, cause that's my bitch. I don't understand how wearing a name tag on me. You know what to say, you still calling me wrong name.
Don't get vexed with me. Don't say that.
Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture? Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since we started.
Join the Caribbean community and CariVision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. May 31st at 8 p.m.
United Nations Special Representative for Disaster Risk Reduction, Robert Glasser, is calling for participants at the 2017 Global Platform to take a more inclusive approach to disaster risk management. Speaking on Wednesday morning at the start of the plenary sessions, Glasser said that in keeping with the theme of the three-day conference to move from commitment to action, the deliberations will center on actions to build resilience to disasters and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030.
We expect that the multi-stakeholder nature of this gathering, the opportunity to share and learn from each other, will provide great momentum in our efforts to make this a safer and more resilient world. We are focusing fundamentally on ensuring putting in place national and local strategies for disaster risk reduction by 2020, the earliest deadline in of the Sendai Framework global targets. We will look at how we can learn from best practice in integrating action on climate and disaster risk so that disaster risk reduction efforts support the overall achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially efforts, of course, to reduce poverty.
This meeting in Cancun, Mexico, is the first global meeting of its kind since the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction was adopted in Japan in 2015. It has brought together over 5,000 people, representing about 180 countries. Glasser urged participants to make the best of the discussions over the next 3 days by exchanging experiences, agreeing on action, and taking other measures to prevent and reduce disaster losses. Some of the topics down for discussion include early warning and risk information, preparedness, ecosystems protection, management and resilience, and health and disaster risk reduction. Mayor for the Roseau City in Dominica, Irene John, says following the passage of Tropical Storm Erica, efforts are being made to improve the city's resilience to the effects of climate change. Mayor John was addressing an intergovernmental panel on the fringes of the 2017 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction that, as we mentioned before, is happening in Mexico. One common threat across cities from Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean is the challenge faced by local and national governments in unplanned urban areas. Mayor John says following the storm, the Roseau City Council started working with local agencies as well as the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and the New Zealand government to enhance the functionality of emergency shelters in the city.
However, the scope of this task is beyond just upgrading shelters. It requires a comprehensive set of actions that will complement interventions being pursued regionally and internationally. These actions, I believe, must be aligned to the two Sustainable Development Goals. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And Goal 13, take urgent action to reduce the impact of climate change. It is also very fitting to put emphasis on the following two priority areas of the Sendai Framework for Action. A, investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience, and B, enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better.
But the city mayor is advocating for more to be done by way of legislation to ensure that the country can build back better.
The use of building codes and approved international standards for our construction practices must be highlighted and encouraged for all projects ongoing and new. It is this approach that enhanced changes of averting some of the effects we experienced in times past. We really need to build back better. While these initiatives are significant steps and are to continue, we recognize future the need for preparedness. All investments must be supported by an appropriate legislative framework and actions to develop early warning systems, which should include monitoring gauges along the Roseau River.
Well, Dominica was devastated following the passage of Tropical Storm Erica in 2015. It caused $1.18 billion in damage and loss. That represented 90% of the island's gross domestic product. It destroyed 60% of the road infrastructure and caused over 30 deaths. The global platform is designed to give government, civil society, and the private sector an opportunity to announce details of how they will work together to achieve the goals of reducing disaster losses. And ahead in sport, a long-awaited victory for Barbados' netball team. Stay tuned.
School of Business and Management invites you to attend Navigating a Path to Growth, a risk and competitive intelligence conference at Hilton Barbados Resort on June 26th and 27th, 2017. Speakers include Global Strategy and Risk expert Dr. Andrea Schotter, Regional PwC Risk Assurance Leader Bruce Scott, Miss Lisa Padmore, Dr. Delisle Worrell, Mr. Ian D'Souza, Professor Patrick Hossain, Professor Gillian Marcel, and many others. For more information, call 246-424-7731 or visit www.uwichsb.org. Secure your space today.
Follow your heart to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabba Ranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Riot, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Credence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Tedderson John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
In a place where legends start, the beach is just the beginning. So live a little for the exhilaration and the color of every moment, where time is and life is a spirited event. Immerse yourself in the culture, the music, the people, the island. Love Antigua and Barbuda. Embrace an experience that leaves you breathless, from cricket to sailing week to carnival and more. Antigua and Barbuda, the beach is just the beginning.
We begin our midweek sports with netball, and Barbados stunned world number 4 Jamaica with a pulsating 43-41 victory on Monday night, stealing a 1-1 draw in the 3-match series and registering their first win over the Caribbean powerhouses in 33 years. Playing at the National Arena, Jamaica controlled the game throughout and led 32-31 at the start of the final quarter, but then fell apart as 12th-ranked Barbados outscored them 12-9 to pull off a sensational result. TVJ's Renato Brown has that story.
A 44 all-time Game 1 and a 40-36 win for Jamaica in Game 2 on Sunday showed that there wasn't that much between the two teams. And when the number 4 ranked the Sunshine Girls to the first quarter 11-8, the closeness between the two teams became clearer. The Jamaicans failed to establish themselves in the second quarter as the number 12 ranked Bajans kept them in check 21-18 at the end of the first half. The third quarter was even closer, 32-31 for the Jamaicans, but the Bajans could sense blood. The visitors played a gem in the final quarter with Shanika Wharton getting 26 goals from 31 attempts as the Bajans outshone and outscored the Sunshine Girls 12-9 to record a historic win on Jamaican soil.
Meanwhile, a veteran local netball coach has criticized the approach of recently appointed national head coach, Englishwoman Jermaine Allison McCracken, saying she lacks the tact needed to succeed in her new role. Winston Nevers, who has won multiple titles with a local club Jamalco and has helped to produce national talents such as Romelda Aiken, said Allison McCracken needs to change her approach. Nevers told the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper this: "I heard the coach in an interview the other day saying she's not here to be liked and she's not here to mother the girls. I am telling her that she made a big mistake. If you study sports psychology, it will tell you that in order for your players to excel, you have to win them over to you to really make them play for you. So they give you that extra drive and that extra effort." Allison McCracken was appointed in March by Netball Jamaica, but controversy struck recently when she fell out with the Sunshine Girls trio of Nicole Dixon, Shanice Beckford, and Khadijah Williams. The players were subsequently dismissed from the training squad preparing for the just concluded three-match series against Barbados, which finished 1-1 on Monday. Nevers said for a coach to be successful, that person needs to earn the trust and confidence of players and also be able to relate to them on off-court matters. Over to the Cayman Islands, the executive of the country's Athletics Association is coming under fire for lack of transparency. The accusations come from some disgruntled members of the CIAA mere days before the body holds its internal elections. Cayman 27's Jordan Armaniz spoke with some of the members who feel the incumbent executive also lacks leadership skills.
It comes from the top and it works its way down. Whoever is running it as the president and the team underneath it has to be the right people.
345 Athletics Club President Derek Larner says the CIAA's executive committee sets the tone for the rest of the sport on the island.
It lacks leadership. You know, yes, we know that Sidoni is the vice president, but if she can't answer questions and points that in a direction of somebody else, then you think, well, you know, what's the point? This other person's not here to answer the question.
And the questions keep coming. Case in point, in April 27th's quarterly meeting, a member queries a $50,000 expenditure on water and Gatorade, asking if it could be broken down since it seemed excessive. Vice President Sidoni Mothersill suggests that if there are any additional financial questions, that members should email Treasurer Paula Erskine. Ms. Erskine was not present. Another member adds, when emailing Erskine as suggested, the answers being provided were not forthcoming.
I said before, you have to be accountable. If you put yourself on the pedestal, you have to be prepared to take those questions and answer them. Don't try and shuffle it off and ferry it away to somebody else.
Triple jumper and relay runner Carl Morgan says he's all too familiar with the CIAA's troubles after competing for 15 years.
I would like to see people that are willing to come to the table if there's a mistake, man up to the mistake and try to address the issue, and so everyone can be at ease and everyone can function, because at the end of the day, if we have division, then it's not going to work.
He says it negatively impacts Cayman's athletes.
It gets into the psyche that sometimes athletes are physically prepared, but psychologically when they hear stuff like this or they know of something that's going on behind the background, it takes away from their performance.
He says that won't change until there are changes in the way the association is run.
And finally, in horse racing, six-time reigning Northlands Park champion Rico Walcott rode a triple on Monday to take the headlines. Walcott, already leading after just 3 weeks of the new season, pulled off victories in race 1 with favourite Zaptown and race 3 with another favourite Up Jumps a Monster, before wrapping up his haul in race 6 with 2-1 bet Pakal. In race 3, Walcott brought 8-year-old gelding Up Jumps a Monster with a late run to edge the 3-year-old and upwards by a head. Matt Jukish has the call.
Right. Quick start on the far outside here for Clever Speed as he's sent right towards that early lead. Now trying to drive through, turn the pressure on will be Mizzen George. He was hustling early at the back of the pack, will now pop ahead in front of Clever Speed. Right behind that pair is Feisty Forster, then Donna's Boy. A gap of 5 back of the late running duo of Up Jumps a Monster and Barfly's Survivor. Opening quarter up in a brisk 22-2, and it's Mizzen George leading by 2 as the field runs down the backside. Clever Speed stalks in second. Third, therefore, Feisty Forrester with 4 lengths to make up. 3 furlongs to run. Donna's Boy is fourth. He's got 7 to come, then a gap of 4 more back to the trailing pair of Up Jumps a Monster and Barfly's Survivor. As they reach the quarter pole, half will come up in 44-2. Another quick fraction there, 22-2 for Mizzen George. The lead is 3 lengths. Feisty Forrester now tries to close the gap on him. On the outside, Clever Speed's under a drive. Then it's a gap of 3 back to Donna's Boy. Up Jumps a Monster. Barfly Survivor start to turn it on. The lead is still 2 lengths for Mizzen George. Trying to split horses late will be Up Jumps a Monster. Clever Speed not done yet either as Mizzen George starts to stagger. Here comes Up Jumps a Monster. Mizzen George. Up Jumps a Monster.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Ready. It's another episode when we out on the road. This is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink.
King Baba and the guitar. Hey, hey, hey. Every fete that I go, you keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, 'cause that's my bitch. I don't understand how we're in the name tag on me. You know what to say, you still calling me wrong name.
Don't get vexed with me. Don't say that.
Ravenel's Resort and Conference Center is the mecca of conferences in the island of Tobago. The state-of-the-art facility caters to executive forums, weddings, banquets, training, elegant dining, and tranquil accommodations. Guests at Ravenel's Resort can choose from self-catering, standard, deluxe, and executive rooms. Sit at the poolside and savor the ambiance of nature, or enjoy a sumptuous meal on the terrace and inside the Bouvardia restaurant. Let's go to Ravenel's Resort and Conference Center, the tranquil Caribbean Resort. Call 868-639-9666 or visit our website at www.ravenelsresorttobago.com.
In a place where legends start, the beach is just the beginning. So live a little for the exhilaration and the color of every moment, where time is and life is a spirited event. Immerse yourself in the culture, the music, the people, the island. Love Antigua and Barbuda. Embrace an experience that leaves you breathless, from cricket to sailing week to carnival and more. Antigua and Barbuda, the beach is just the beginning.
A recap of the major developments of the day. Polls are now closed in the Cayman Islands and counting of ballots will soon begin after today's historic vote, and allegations of vote buying and other infractions are being investigated by police. And in sport, Barbadian netballers celebrate a long-awaited victory against their Jamaican rivals. They took a 43-41 victory on Monday night in the 3-match series. It's the first win for the team in over 33 years against the Caribbean powerhouses. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports round the clock, log on to ConneNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and good night.